So I believe I got catfished again. As far as I know, I've only been catfished once before, as far as I know. And I told that story a few years back on this channel. That was on Grindr like 5 years ago that I got catfished, and I was like horrified because I couldn't believe that I was manipulated by somebody who actually otherwise I had a great dialogue with. But anyway, this time it happened on an app, ironically, where this kind of thing isn't supposed to happen. And this app is called The League. So for those of you who are not familiar with the app The League, it's kind of like a more elitist version of Bumble, meaning it's a smaller user base and it's marketed as like, you know, a higher tier sort of collection of people, because it's supposed, I mean, it's called League like Ivy League. It's supposed to be more educated people, more polished, more professional. In fact, you have to get verified. I don't know how seriously they do that process, but you have to connect like your LinkedIn or your Facebook or something along those lines. So it's not like Tinder or Grindr where you can just, you know, make an anonymous profile with, you know, one picture or no pictures. You go through a waitlist process, which is short. I think I got through after a week. I think they really just check that you're an actual person, you have an actual profile, and you put some kind of effort into the profile. I appreciate that, and that's why I came back to the app. I was on it in 2018. Interestingly, when I first lived in Miami just for that summer, I don't think I met with anybody in person from the app, but then I kept it when I moved to Los Angeles, and there I did actually go on an in-person date with someone from the app. So I re-downloaded it here thinking, you know what, maybe this is a better avenue for me, because I have had the issue here in Miami of encountering a lot of superficial people, a lot of superficial profiles. And what's nice about The League is it only sends you a few potential matches a day. Every day, clockwork, same time every day, it'll spit out like, I think 3 different profiles, and you either are interested or you're not. And it's nice because that keeps you from getting too involved or like obsessive, where you're just swiping through profiles left and right like you might on Tinder. And of course, when there's fewer profiles, it forces you to pay more attention to those profiles, right? So you're more invested in the small quantity that's there. So I've only matched with one guy though so far since joining, and he was a total hottie. And we had a great conversation the first time, like when we first matched. And then the communication slowed down after that, which is always a turn off, right? Like he would take longer and longer to respond. Finally, after 5 days of like on and off communication, I was like, you know what? We should do a video call, because in my mind, I'm like, let's see if there's really chemistry there and go from there. He declined the video call, which is okay because, you know, I asked him last minute, and, you know, sometimes people just aren't in the mood. But that really was the first red flag. The next time we talked, a few days later, he said that he was out of the country for a month, but that he would text me when he comes back. And of course I was bummed, because I was like, a month? Like I'm gonna have to wait a month? He's like, yeah, but if you want, you can add me on Instagram. And his Instagram was connected to his profile. And it was the only thing connected, by the way. He didn't have Facebook or LinkedIn connected like I mentioned earlier, which I thought was a requirement. So in my mind, I'm like, I guess he's a paying user then? So he must be real, he must be serious if he's paying for an account. I don't know that for sure, but I just feel like I would have connected Instagram if I had the option instead of something like LinkedIn. So anyway, his account though is private, his Instagram account, which again, totally normal, like a lot of people have private accounts, but he said, add me. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, he does want to connect off the app, he is traveling, let me add him. So I said, okay, I'll add you, but here, take my number just in case, because I actually much prefer connecting, you know, one-on-one via texting or calling. Social media, connecting through social media, I never enjoy that, because then I feel like sometimes you never talk to the person again, but they watch every single one of your stories, or they like every single one of your posts, and I just get annoyed. So I pressed request follow, and then a few minutes later, I was still on Instagram, and I noticed that he watched my story on Instagram. So I'm like, oh. So I go back to his profile, and he hadn't accepted my request. So then I start getting like nervous, because I'm like, wait, how come he watched my story, but he's not responding to my request? And then he messages me back on The League, and he's like, oh, I actually prefer to speak here. So of course, then at that point, like my spidey senses went off. But my first thought was one of insecurity. I was like, oh, he's not, like he saw my Instagram and he's like, turned off now, like he doesn't want to connect further on Instagram. I go back to Instagram, and he denied my request. And Instagram doesn't tell you that, but the follow button, the follow request button becomes blue again. Like it gives you the option to submit a follow request again, as opposed to saying pending or whatever. So I was like, oh my God, he rejected my follow request. So then back on the league, I'm like, wait, you didn't accept my request on Instagram? And he never responded. So of course for days I was like obsessing about it, and I was like, what happened? Like, did I say something, or is he just not real? And then every friend that I talked to about this was like, he's catfishing you. Like, this has nothing to do with you. This person is catfishing you. And in my mind, I was like, no, he has to be real because we had such a nice conversation that first day. And then I thought back to the only other time, as far as I know, that I have been catfished. And that time I had a great conversation with the guy too. The guy just wasn't the guy in the pictures. So then after thinking about it, I was like, wait, he declined a video call and then suddenly travels for work for a month. And then days later, I saw that he changed his city to another US city, to Atlanta, on the league. And I was like, okay, something's up here, because he had just said he was out of the country for a month. Like, why would he randomly be switching cities? So I unmatched because I was like, you know what? I don't deserve these headaches. Why is it so difficult to meet a normal, sane person? Truth be told, if I could avoid apps, like never use an app again to meet somebody, I would. The thing is, the beautiful thing about dating apps is you can get exposed to people who you otherwise would never meet, right? Like, I work from home, so I'm pretty isolated. And being a gay person, right, you can't just like assume that somebody's gay. So there's something beautiful about these apps, I think, for all of us as gay people, that you're like, oh wow, this is the guy that I saw at Whole Foods. I had no idea that he was gay. Or on these apps though, just seeing the different backgrounds and different, you know, the different packages that gay men come in, there's something I think really cool about that still for me. Like, oh wow, this person's gay and this person's gay and this person's interested in me. But then you deal with this where like you don't know who you're really talking to, and it fucking sucks. So I'm still gonna keep this app because I do actually like that it's low maintenance and small doses. And you can't, you know, assume that everybody's gonna treat you this way or that you're gonna have this experience over and over because it happened once. Like, what's the saying? One rotten apple doesn't spoil the whole crop or the whole basket. But I do think the lesson here too is to be clear with boundaries. Like, if somebody rejects a video call and then doesn't make an effort to make up for it, then you can just leave it alone, right? Because that person either doesn't care enough to get to know you or something's up. Like, that's what I think I'm gonna do now moving forward, is request a video call pretty early on when I'm talking to somebody, just so I don't keep wasting my time. And it is really nice that a lot of these apps added that feature during COVID, because a lot of them didn't have the video call feature before COVID, and now I think like all of them do. Have you guys ever used this app? And tell me your catfishing stories below in the comments.